Hi, my name is Natasha Birnbaum, and I'm a founding member and head of business development at Mogul. And I'm really excited to be here with you today to share the story of Mogul, how we started, the journey that we went through, the lessons that we learned that you can apply to your own startups today, as well as why it's important for women worldwide. To share with you a little bit about my personal story and backstory, I come from a family of entrepreneurs. My grandparents were immigrants, and like many immigrants, went to Paris, went to New York. I grew up in Paris with very little money. They arrived, fresh off the boat, very little money in their pockets, and got started immediately on their entrepreneurial journeys. My grandfather on my father's side started in the textile industry and then would own a factory. My grandfather on my mother's side was a performer before the war. He was an actor and a comedian. And after the war, continued to perform, all the while having a lot of side hustles, doing a lot in the hospitality industry, throwing parties, throwing events. My father would quit college before graduating because of the May '68 revolt and student revolt in Paris, and then go on to start his entrepreneurial journey in the textile industry, and then would later found 15 companies, some more successful than others. My brother, he started at a much younger age, actually. He started at age 6, albeit in my grandparents' bathroom, charging them for access, for which they willingly paid for, go figure. 2 years later, he would put together a more established business in the park across the street from us, selling fresh-pressed orange juice. This was virtually unheard of in France, though you saw a lot of lemonade stands and kids selling lemonade. In the US, in France, this was virtually unheard of. He then, as he grew up and was graduating high school, and I was a young teenager, every family dinner would become a case study based on a new business idea, how feasible it was, how scalable it was. And I would always be very curious and always listening to all of it. My brother would then become a successful entrepreneur and now has a VC seed stage fund in New York. But I'm curious if you've recognized a pattern amongst all of these stories. I'm sure what you realize is that a lot of these stories involved, all of these entrepreneurial journeys were really based on the men in my family. And the women were very often left out of the conversation. So though I was always really passionate about the subject and always really curious to hear about all these new business ideas and how feasible they were, I was always listening to it from the other side of the table and arguing the case within my own head. And so I always had in my idea and in the back of my mind that women's share of voice was not as present as men's. If you looked at the representation, the share of voice of women in today's society, 15% in terms of op-eds, representation on op-eds and boards. In terms of information sharing, women only sharing very little on Reddit. Only 9% of Reddit users are women. Only 9% of Wikipedia editors are women. So women are really not sharing information with each other and don't have a very large share of voice in society. And so this really became a subject that I became very passionate about, along with the idea of how to scale and grow a business. So then after graduating college at Georgetown, I decided to get as much experience as possible growing all sides of a business. So I started with trying to gain experience on the digital front, on the commerce front, started in the infancy of Bloomingdale's.com, and then later left once .com had become their largest store in terms of share of revenue. After that, decided to get a little bit more experience growing partnerships for growth, and went into the educational sector, connecting young talent to leaders across industries. So I was building partnerships between higher education institutions like Columbia Business School, like Parsons, like Hong Kong University of Science and Tech, IE Madrid, Sciences Po, and along with over 25 various corporations like LVMH, for example. And through this, I was also collaborating with a lot of women in the industry. And actually, later on, the women that I was collaborating with would then become the founders of Mogul. And together, we'd launch Mogul, launching the very first week that we launched to 1 million users, becoming the fastest growing content platform for women ever. So what is Mogul exactly? Mogul is the fastest growing tech platform for women, enabling them to share information in the form of articles, stories, jobs, products, videos, pictures, really any type of content you can imagine, to upload it and be able to share that with women all around the world so that then they can access knowledge from each other. So I'll play a short video recapping. No. Should take only a couple more minutes.
So we'll continue in just a few seconds. We need some time to load the video. If you've got anything else already to say, just use the time in the meantime.
Sure. So you'll see here part of the posting functionality where you can post a story, a link, a job, a product.
Oh, danke dir.
And really, the reason why I wanted to show a video was because, part of storytelling and why it's so important for founders, and, at the end of the day, everyone's a salesperson, and whether you're pitching an investor or pitching someone to work for you, or...
So I got to meet Tiffany, who started Mogul. It's now the #1 millennial platform. Started it herself. She's now employing people all over the world with the promise of what it is to be a connected millennial woman, focusing on STEM education, focusing on unconscious bias, but offering great ability to share and connect to people.
More technical difficulties.
I think the Wi-Fi probably is just too slow, so we'll have to do without the video. But maybe you can describe what we see, and then we continue.
Yeah, if we can just go back to the... Here we go. So you'll see here the very first version of Mogul, which our CEO taught herself how to code, built the very first version, which was definitely not the most user-friendly experience, definitely not very pretty looking, but really went to the heart of what we were trying to do, right? So women could upload content, share it with women all around the world. What it looks like today is pretty different, so definitely same functionality overall, same mission behind it, but with a much prettier user flow, better user experience, and added functionalities. And what you can really see on the homepage is all the trending content across women's issues globally. We're having a global impact. We're reaching 18 million women each week. We're accessed every single day by every single country, all 196, over 30,000 cities. And what we're seeing is women writing to us, telling us that it's changing their lives. So for example, this first letter up here is one of the very first ones that we received, and it's still one of my favorite ones. It's from a 16-year-old girl in Pakistan who told us that a girl's life there is all about marriage, but Mogul helps her by pointing out ideas that she can be more than what society says. She says, I'm kind of a feminist now and love, love, love this Mogul. And so besides sharing information, you can also share products. So you have women who are sharing their products that they're selling on Etsy, on Kickstarter, on eBay, and they're telling us that it's doubling their sales because it's generating so much traffic back to those sites. And then you have someone like Adele, is explaining how it's democratizing PR, right? So they're able to post these products completely free, and then are able to generate so much traffic back that they're able to get their Kickstarters funded, for example, by the hundreds of thousands of dollars. So she says, the site is amazing, it's democratizing PR and giving women their voice. And we're really lucky. We're not alone on this journey. We have 5,000 influencers, people like Katie Couric, like Chelsea Clinton, Kelly Osbourne, the mayor of Paris, Anne Hidalgo, Rebecca Minkoff, really, really strong voices who believe in Mogul and are sharing content and engaging with the platform regularly. We're really lucky to have an amazing team behind us. Our investors, our think tank members, our advisors include the chief officers of companies like BBC, like Hearst, MTV, AOL, and are all really backing us and supporting us extremely. The press also supports us, so we were named by Business Insider as one of the 100 most exciting startups. We were named by Forbes as one of the top 8 sites for marketing your company online, right behind Google and Yelp. We were named by Inc. as one of the best resources for female job seekers, right behind LinkedIn and Indeed. And the way that we're able to fuel this growth and continue to accelerate our momentum is through our revenue model, where we have 2 revenue streams. One is Mogul Studios, which creates branded campaigns and content on the platform and distributes it, as well as Mogul at Work is the second revenue arm that has job postings, creates employer branding profiles with companies, as well as does webinars and training specifically on the topic of unconscious bias and inclusive leadership, really helping accelerate diversity and inclusion in the workplace. We're seeing 173% year-over-year user growth and 157% year-over-year revenue growth, which further helps us put it back into the platform and accelerate our momentum. And again, we're really lucky to have partnered with really amazing companies who really support us and back our mission, from the AOL and Amazon, Dell, eBay, Ericsson, J.Crew, IBM, Western Union, Vice, who are all really supportive and also working on diversifying their workforces. We're now accelerating this momentum and putting this towards girls' education. We've signed a historic partnership with the United Nations so that every dollar that comes in, they're providing a free education to one woman in need. And in this way, we're able to offer over 62 million women a free education. So, just to recap everything that I mentioned and the journey and how it could apply to you today, I wanted to just take this time to reiterate all the major points. So, in thinking about what you can do, I would like to ask you to connect with women, hear their voices, hear their ideas, and become collaborators with them. Prototype early and quickly. You'll see that our very first version was very nitty-gritty, was not very pretty, but over time you'll achieve perfection. Encourage young talent around you, to reach out to people that they admire, and from that they'll be able to accelerate their path forward and be able to reach out to people so that they can learn from this diversity in thought. And finally, be kind, authentic, and generous. These are the values that we embody at Mogul, and every single member of our team does. And I can tell you that if we had not done so, Mogul would not be where it is today, and I definitely would not be here with you today. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Natasha. And hi, everyone. Thank you for your presentation. Yeah. Quite impressive numbers. We have a very ambitious mission today, and to talk about the key of building a global empire from scratch, and we've only got a couple of minutes, so let's dive right into it. But before we do, how did you come up with the name Mogul, and where does it come from? What does it mean?
Yeah, so Mogul, I'm sure you're familiar, very often is associated with media, like a media mogul. When you Googled the word mogul at the time when we first started, what very often would come up is essentially only men, and very often Trump would come up as an example of a mogul. And so we decided to repurpose this word and have it associated with women. And so now when you Google mogul, we're the very first search result.
Right. This morning, a successful German founder said here on stage, culture eats strategy for breakfast. Is that would you support that sentiment? Is that the key?
Absolutely, and we have we're really lucky to have an incredible team culture, workplace culture. We had an HR person from the very, very start, which is really unheard of in startups, but I really encourage you to think about that because it set us up for success in the future and continues to do so, because the people at the end of the day are what have helped us accelerate and grow forward and have really been incredible collaborators.
So it's not all about having a foosball or table tennis or GoDaddy has a card track in their office.
You know, I think you see this at a lot of startups, and it's, you know, oh, there's a beanbag, that's great. But we really focus a lot more on building authentic connections with people, as you'll see on our platform, which is then reflected also within our company internally. So we really focus on that. So for example, we just had our 3rd anniversary, and what we did is treated everyone to an hour shopping spree at Barnes & Noble, where you could buy any single book that you would want. You can buy as many as you'd want within an hour. And I think this really reflects our culture, that we're all about learning, all about improving ourselves, and always looking to the future.
Having a good corporate culture is always easy when things go well, but how can you sustain this when things go wrong, or there are always periods where you don't get the results that you want? How do you sustain a good corporate culture in those times?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously, you know, when I interview people, I always look for people who are able to adapt to change very quickly, because that's very much needed at a startup. So I interview a lot around that and how quickly they can scrap things and start over. But beside that, you know, again, having that HR person from the very beginning, they were able to address any issue that would come up from the very start, versus it letting fester, and then all of a sudden you have a huge problem.
Mogul is a story that's about growth, what was the first thing after you started the company? You mentioned that you got an HR person very early, but what was the first, you know, big step that you did with the company?
Yeah, you know, I think a lot of times it seems so daunting because you don't know what the very first steps are. And so what we always embody internally in our culture and like the way that we do things is lay out the very first steps that can take you to the next step, right? So if you start by thinking, okay, what is the very first thing I need to do to create a business? You say, okay, go to the bank, open up a bank account, and then, you know, on to the second step. But if you can lay out those very few steps that are the very beginning, then it really sets you up, and then you can continue to move forward.
Now, having an HR person from the start is that's all well and good, but how do you actually pick the first employees? How does the HR person pick the right person for the job?
So within our teams, every person interviews for their own team, right? So the HR person kind of screens the people at the beginning, but then we really go in and then have the final decision. What I always look for is obviously culture fit, but what does culture fit mean? At a lot of startups, it's like, oh, someone you can go get a beer with, but you know, it's a little bit bro-y, it's not exactly very mogul. So I think it really depends on your company and your culture and what you stand for. For us, we're always looking for people who are very passionate about a mission because we're so mission driven.
Now, you did one investment round, a seed investment, right?
Yeah.
When did you start looking for an investor? In
So
other words, how important is money?
money is very important, and that's why we started with a very scalable revenue model. And that's why we have 2 revenue generating arms within Mogul, so that we can be we're profitable, and that really is what helps us accelerate forward. Currently, we're building our next 5-year plan so that we can really assess how much funding do we need, how much funding can we live without, so that we can continue to empower women's lives globally.
Now, your business model is obviously very women-centric. Do male investors understand what you're doing?
Absolutely. Some of our male investors are the most supportive ones. We have a lot of women investors, a lot of men investors as well. And for us, it's really important to reflect that within our user base as well as within our advisors and our think tank and our investors. 20% of our users are men, and we also have a fairly large number of male investors as well as female investors, so that really both sides can weigh in and we can really gain from that diversity in thought.
Now you showed us how international a platform Mogul is. Did you do specific country launches, or did you just put the platform out there?
We put the platform out there and saw how people reacted, and you would see just amazing traction. Again, we're present in every single country. We're accessed by them every single day, but especially within countries who typically don't have many women's rights. Pakistan, for example, with the letter that I shared, and other countries in those areas where women are really taking to digital media to really share their experiences and learn from other women around the world.
Thank you. Are there any questions in the audience? Yeah, there's one. We do have microphones, so please state your name.
Hi, my name is Niklas. First of all, thanks for sharing all of that, really inspiring. My question is, with such a rapid user growth, how do you maintain the vibe and the culture of the site itself? And how do you make sure that it doesn't get diluted too quickly by too many people posting and all of that?
Yeah, so there are a few ways that we do that. One is we have a community team within our company who really focuses on community engagement, fostering a really positive community. We are really fortunate because we haven't had many issues on that front, and it's just been a really incredibly supportive community of women sharing information with each other, men too. That being said, we also have a tech component to it that helps weave out any spammers or anything like that.
Are there more questions in the audience? Yep, there's one, and there's another one.
There we go. Yeah, you kind of answered part of the question because you said 25% of your users are male, right?
20%.
20%, okay, good. Because like in my mind already popped up, okay, what about fake users? Like when I have a friend who's using Tinder, and he told me there are a lot of fake women. So I would imagine a lot of trolls, a lot of sexist men would create a female profile on Mogul.
We don't have a huge issue with that. We do use Swift technologies to be able to weave out any spammers, and then we also have shadow banning capabilities so that all of the users who are engaging on the platform are indeed users and are very active.
I think, do we have, okay, no time for questions. I'm sorry, guys. Thank you, Natasha, for being here.
Of course, thank
you guys for listening, and have a good time. Thank you.
Thanks.